for Mid and West Wales. A very good morning to you. Been another busy week.
Yeah, bore da. Yeah, it's been really busy week. It's been lots on. Beginning of the week, or since I've seen you last, we launched the St David's Day Fund. So this is going to be fun. I think it's really weird that people celebrate St David's Day across the world. And when I was international relations minister, I used to go across the world to all these big events in America and France and all these places. And I just thought, we don't do this at home. This is mad. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and get communities to celebrate St David's Day this year in their own communities. So we've set up a fund, almost £1 million, and local communities can bid in for that funding. There's only about 3-4 weeks to go before you can tap into that funding, but it's between £5,000 and I think £40,000. And the idea is you just get out on the streets and have some fun, and maybe in your local pub or whatever it is, and let's celebrate. Let's get the little kids dressed up. Let's just celebrate all there is to be great about being Welsh.
And there's lots to be great about being Welsh, isn't there? And the patron saint, and particularly us here, he's a couple of miles away from us in Haverfordwest. He's on your doorstep.
Yeah, and to be fair, in St David's itself, they go to town on this now. It's something that didn't happen about 10 years ago, but now it's become a thing, and they have a parade and everything. But my question is, why don't we have parades throughout our communities? Why aren't pubs kind of making a big deal out of it? Why, are we not getting kids to go around singing? And, I don't want it to be a kind of Welsh language thing either. For me, being Welsh is everybody. If you live in Wales, you're Welsh, that's it. So let's all celebrate, what it is to be great to be Welsh.
Yeah, I know that it's a highlight in Haverfordwest that we have a parade every year, and it's incredible because everybody comes together and all the schools come together, and it really is a highlight for our county town.
Which is great. I guess I'm trying to get it out into the suburbs, into, all across Wales. So some places do it really well, other places just, whatever.
Yeah. And if you are a lucky recipient and you get a little poster made for it, send it in to us and we'll add it to our What's On's event on the website, purewestradio.com, so we can shout about it with everyone else. So that has been a highlight, isn't it? Allowing
that was good. Yes, that was good. And then of course on the weekend, what was great is we heard about 15,000 new renewable jobs coming to Wales. And of course, Pembrokeshire is going to be a centre for renewable energy. And already, we have Pembrokeshire College really starting to gear people up for this. They've had £800,000 from this fund that was announced that's going to be going towards gearing people up. So really good quality jobs. And these are well-paid jobs. So I do hope people in Pembrokeshire will take the opportunity. It's about getting welders, electricians, and all of those, skilled crafts that we need. And, we're going to need a lot of them. So that's really good news. And, getting Pembrokeshire right at the centre of that is very significant, I think.
It's really exciting seeing the development of the relationship between the Pembrokeshire College and real life industry over the last 2 to 3 years from my knowledge has been exceptional. So it's an exciting time to live, work, study right here on our doorstep, which is wonderful.
I think that's right. Yeah. And the other thing I did last week on Friday is I went to visit Haverfordwest High. And of course, this is a beautiful building, fantastic new Welsh government funded building, one of 300 we've built in Wales. And it was lovely. I spoke to about 400 of the pupils there, and they were really well behaved. It was a really good school, and that was lovely. And then I went to the St Mary's church school in Haverfordwest as well, a primary school, where I met the first ministers. So there were 3 first ministers there who've all been elected by the school itself. So it was great to meet them and to see what they were doing in the school. And they were focused on the day. It was show racism the red card, and they were doing a lot of work on that in their classrooms, which was great to see.
That is. It'll only put the country in good stead when we've got these big open conversations so people can understand the differences and the similarities between us all. It's an exciting time to be in school, I think, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But we've had questions sent in to us, Eluned. And it's half term next week, and some of us might be lucky enough to be getting away and jetting away for a couple of days away. But what we often find is that we have to leave the country to visit the country of our destination. And Sally got in touch, and she was saying, why have Cardiff Airport when it's struggling so significantly? And there was a takeover. If it wasn't for Welsh government, arguably it wouldn't be there at the moment because it was taken over a couple of years ago. What's your stance on that for us that need to travel that extra hour, typically to Bristol or further afield again?
Yeah, well, look, if it weren't for the Welsh government, there wouldn't be an airport in Wales, and I don't think you can be a country, the only country in Europe without an airport. So we did step in because the private sector, the private company running it, was running it into the ground, and we didn't think that was acceptable. So we stepped in. It's not unusual for governments and regional local authorities and things to run airports, but obviously you don't quite have the money to inject that maybe some of the private sector. But what's been great is there has been now an uplift in the number of people using the airport, almost 1 million people now last year. So those figures came out yesterday, and that's up about 5% on what it was before. But obviously people are not going to use it unless the routes are there, unless the flights are going somewhere. So Ryanair had its largest ever Cardiff programme in the summer, so that was helping. And there's been an increased frequency in terms of flights between Wales and Spain. And KLM, of course, connects to about 150 global destinations. And summer 26, you're going to see a fourth additional TUI-based aircraft that's going to open up routes to Egypt and to Faro. And I think there are 38 direct routes on sale all the year round. So that's 30 routes. So look, it's getting better. We're constantly trying to get more people to come and to put new routes in. But the fact is, unless we put that money in, and it's not just about the flights, actually, the travel flights, actually, it's a really important economic development tool. And that's the thing. You've got to remember that without that, jobs might not come in. People, you've got big business and industry. They want to know there's an airport, cargo flights, all of those things are really, really important. And, just to give you an example, if we didn't have an airport, we wouldn't have got the Champions League final to Wales. So, that brought in 42 million quid just in itself. So, but the economic development aspect is a really important aspect. There's a massive British Airways kind of hangar there where they correct aircraft and things. So it's the economic side of things as well as the travel things. But I basically try and go from there as much as I can and just go, right, what goes from Cardiff? I'll go anywhere from Cardiff because it's much more convenient, as you say, than going to Bristol.
Yeah, and easier to navigate as well, because one of my friends was like, well, I'm only going to go from Cardiff because it is a lot easier for her to navigate. So that's a plus from her.
What are the likelihood of the very, you don't need to give a detailed answer on this, but the roads linking the airport to the M4, are they likely to be improved anytime soon, make them a little bit more friendly?
Well, there've been some improvements. The route just when you get to Barry to link you to the M4, that's what they call it, 5 Mile Lane, I think they call it. That's improved quite a lot. But that is part of the problem. So obviously we put bus services on and things in the past. So that's part of the difficulty, isn't it? Is how do you get there? Obviously we're always looking at ways to improve that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Significantly closer to home where we are, we've had a question from Helen. And this is the Health Board's continued decision to downgrade Withybush Hospital, with views, and I know there's been a long consultation about building a new hospital on the borders with Carmarthenshire. Would it have made more sense to upgrade Withybush Hospital and give the people of Pembrokeshire peace of mind should the worst happen? This is an ongoing saga. And of course, you were head of the table at one point, being a health minister. What's your view?
Look, I think the first thing is we've got to make sure that whatever happens, there's access to safe and high quality healthcare in Pembrokeshire, right? That's the number one thing. What's worth noting is medicine is changing. Okay, so people are becoming more and more specialized, and as you get more specialized, you get better outcomes. So, you know, for the patients, you want to see a real specialist who's got the expertise. Part of the issue is because we don't have large numbers and populations, it's very difficult to attract those experts to West Wales. So I was visiting the Withybush on Friday, and it was fascinating talking to a haematologist there. And he was saying, listen, you know, I love it here. He's from India. And he was saying, but actually, you know, about 60% of the haematologists in Wales will be retiring in the next few years. And where are you going to get those haematologists from? Because he said, we've advertised in Britain and they haven't come. They don't apply, and they don't want to come that far west. And so what was great is I met somebody who'd come from somebody else they'd been out to recruit in India, who's now established himself in Pembrokeshire. But it's a battle. There's going to be 10 million shortage of health workers across the world by 2030. So everyone's competing for these brilliant people. And the question is, how do you get them to places like Pembrokeshire when they want to be really, really specialists? So there's a staffing issue before we get into the building issue. Obviously, listen, there was a big conversation about building a new hospital. People in Pembrokeshire made it clear that, you know, they didn't want to see that happen. And so that is definitely, being put very much on the back burner now, apart from the fact that that was on offer when the money was there, and there's very little money around now to rebuild. So that's the thing. But I do think it's probably worth mentioning that actually there has been a massive amount spent on Withybush. Listen, you'll all be aware a couple of years ago when the rotting concrete went through the building, we had to kind of spend a huge amount of money getting that better. One of the things I saw on Friday was the same day emergency care service, which is a new service that's been developed. Again, a lot of investment into Withybush. Amazing teams, ambulance workers, GPs, social workers, all working together. And the whole point of what we're trying to do now is to shift care out of hospitals and into the communities. Let's look after people in their own homes, particularly at the elderly. Let's try and look after them in their communities. And to do that, you need to kind of make sure that you shift the emphasis really back into the community as far as possible. So I think if you look at the other things that we're trying to do, there's a whole lot of work going on where we have invested in Withybush, but I recognise, you know, it is an older building, and obviously there's a consultation out at the moment with the Health Board, and these are decisions for the Health Board, because what they've got to concentrate on is what are the best outcomes. How do you make sure people get the best healthcare? And, you know, sometimes that means you've got to travel to get the really specialist attention. But I know that people want that care as close to home as possible. So we've just got to get that balance right.
Yeah, the example that keeps coming to me is if I'm in Angle and I've got an emergency and I need to go all the way to Carmarthen, you're looking at an hour plus before getting there. And that I think that seems to be the recurring theme, particularly with this new heavy industry coming into the ports, that there is concern that people aren't going to be seen quick enough due to the limitations of Withybush.
Yeah, well, look, you know, major trauma centres, you know, all across Britain, you know, what's happening is you consolidate the major trauma centres. So you you make sure people are stabilized in your local hospital, and then you get them to the real experts. So that's the model across the United Kingdom. So, and what happens is all of these hospitals work together if there's a major trauma incident like the one you suggest. So stabilizing people, if they need more specialist attention, moving them on. That's the kind of model that the medics say gives you the best chance of survival.
Thank you so much. And it was only last week, I think, we had Sue from Planet joining us. You mentioned there about care in your community, care at home as best as you can. And we had Sue from Planet talking to us about the micro enterprises that are providing opportunities for companionship, for personal care, so people can stay at home longer and not feel isolated and lonely. So those services already exist. SM Bespoke Care in Pembroke Dock are such organisations that can support you, and they also have the Day Opportunities Fund that you can tap into to keep you well supported at home in the meantime. We're getting a lot of follow-up questions on mental health, so I'm going to shelve that though until a future opportunity that you're going to join us, if that's okay. We've had a few questions here about that, but we talked about Withybush in itself. I think that we'll put that for a future time that you're with us here on a Wednesday. It's coming up next, actually, after you, we're going to be talking to Anne-Marie Harris from Farmers Food at Home, Eluned Morgan, because it's Women in Business Week this week. And well, you're a woman in politics, the business of politics, but who have been, what's your take on this week and business in general?
Well, do you know what? I was a member of the European Parliament for a long time. And one of the things that I recognize is that, people feels quite often that politicians kind of lose touch with normality and people's real everyday lives and things. So I deliberately left politics for a while, and I went to work in business, and I deliberately went because I thought, why do people invest in Wales, or why do they not invest in Wales? What happens? So I went to work for an energy company to try and work out how do we land more jobs in Wales and things. And it was a fascinating experience. And one of the things that was interesting with that company was that actually every single member of the board, of the management board, was a man. And, as a result of that, it was just fascinating. I used to challenge them about, well, why are you doing that? And so one of the things, for example, their marketing budgets, they used to target, rugby and golf and cricket and stuff. And actually, I was saying, well, look, there are some women who are interested in that. That's fine. But actually, a lot of women are really not. So, and the people who decide which energy company you're going to go with are women generally. So why don't you target it where the women have more of an interest and things? And they hadn't even considered that because there wasn't a woman around the table. So I just think it's really important to make sure that there are women at the table, because there are times when we do think differently, we bring a different angle to it, we understand the different needs. So I think making sure that women are involved in business, encouraging them to set up their own companies, getting them to take a lead in every aspect of society is really important. And Anita Roddick was a big hero of mine. She set up the Body Shop, didn't she? And she was a pioneer, I think, for women. She did this, no testing on animals, and very big environmentalist. And she built an empire, but she built an empire without compromising on her principles, and that's really good, I think.
I think that's quite a lovely way to draw that to a close. And some of the women that we've had here this week, we've had Sian from OLS Solicitors on yesterday. We had our very own commercial director, Alison Lewis-Belton. She joined us on Monday today. Anne-Marie Harris from Farmers Food at Home. We're going to have the ladies from Sign Speed join us, and also from Nibbles Cafe. They're all contributing to shed a light on the women in business right here in Pembrokeshire and West Wales. And, well, you mentioned earlier there about schools. We've had a follow-up question about the anti-racism agenda, so we'll put that for a future episode. But there'll be young girls, young women in those schools that are going to be future entrepreneurs themselves. And this 21st Century Schools project, the initiative that you're looking at, is a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the proudest achievements of the Welsh government, I think. Over several years now, we have spent about £3 billion on building new schools, and there are schools across the whole of Pembrokeshire, which are brand new. And of course, one of those was the Haverfordwest High School. And then, of course, there's Ysgol Gymraeg Portbro Penfro. So those are huge schools. The Portfield Special School redevelopment. And then there's Ysgol Harry Tudur, and of course, massive investment in Pembrokeshire College. So, and lots of primary schools as well. So all of those things have led to, across Wales, about 300 new schools being built. And this is something that hasn't been happening in England at all. So when they had that rack problem in England, the rotting concrete, they had to close loads of their schools, but we didn't in Wales because we've been renewing our schools. Now there's still loads more to go, don't get me wrong, but we're a long way down the track in Wales, and I hope that all of the pupils and the parents of those pupils actually are appreciating that getting kids to learn in a modern, vibrant environment is actually really great for them.
Yeah, of course, last week we had some of the pupils of Ysgol Bro Penfro join us for Shemai Day, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. How is your next 7 days looking then, Eluned, here, there and everywhere?
Well, it's going to be a busy couple of days. I'm going to open a new office very soon. Rolls-Royce is establishing a base here in Wales, so that's very exciting because they bring very high-tech engineering jobs. That's really good news. Obviously, we've got a tricky by-election in Caerphilly tomorrow, so all eyes will be on Caerphilly for the next couple of days, I'm sure. And then actually it's half term. So there's lots of things going on. There's the Bio Festival, of course, in St David's on the weekend. And then towards the end of that week, there's the Other Voices Festival in Cardigan. So there's loads going on. And so there's opportunities for me to get out and about back home in Pembrokeshire.
I love it. Well, safe travels to here, there and everywhere. And we look forward to finding out some of your highlights next Wednesday here on The Breakfast Show. Gina, any last thoughts from you?
No, just incredible, and keep doing the wonderful work that you do. Enjoy half term. Hopefully you get a little bit of downtime in your busy schedule, and till next week, have a wonderful week.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, and you.
A great big thank you to Danny, Denise, who have been and Lee Mills, Samantha, that have been in the comments. We've made a note of all of your questions, and we'll see whether we can get to them in a future iteration. We had Olivia Dean dive before Eluned joined us. What have you got lined up for us next?
I think this is Call Me Al, Paul Simon. So this is just one of my childhood. Just love the style, the song, brilliant.
It's brilliant. It's going to get us bopping through to our conversation with Anne-Marie Harris coming up next. Eluned Morgan, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you, diolch.
Wonderful Wednesday, sponsored by Price and Kelway.